My all-powerful ex-wife, the Colonel, seemed to have forgotten something. Just as she could cripple the right hand I used to save lives for the sake of her comrade, I could, at her father's life-or-death moment, refuse the one surgery only I could perform. 2 years after our divorce, I was invited back to Fort Bragg as a visiting medical expert. The moment I stepped off the plane, I was swarmed by a pack of military journalists. "Dr. Clark, your father-in-law, the general, was in a car accident. He's in heart failure, and no one at Fort Bragg can perform the necessary surgery. Will you be the one to operate?" I replied coolly, "He's my former father-in-law. And please pass a message to Colonel Vance for me. If no one is available to collect her father's body in the end, I'd be happy to do it." The reporters exchanged shocked glances, stunned that I would dare say something so audacious while still technically affiliated with the military. After all, no one knew the real story. Years ago, Chloe Vance's first love, Liam Foster, killed my mother in a hit-and-run while on assignment. I took him to court, but within 3 days, someone else had confessed to the crime, and the true killer walked free. Just as I was hitting my lowest point, Liam's mother was diagnosed with a high-risk brain tumor. Besides me, no one in the entire Fort Bragg area could perform the resection. My immediate reaction was to refuse, but Chloe had my sister and me abducted and taken to a military guest house. She pinned my hand to the floor with her boot, grinding it mercilessly, while several large men dragged my sister in front of me. Lily's broken, helpless sobs filled the air. Despite acting like a demon, Chloe watched me with a placid expression. "Ethan, either you get up and operate on Liam's mother, or I open that door right now and let everyone on this base see what a debauched mess your sister looks like." My eyes burned with rage as I stared at her. "You know damn well Liam Foster killed my mother. His mother getting sick is karma, and you're forcing me to save the life of my enemy's parent." Chloe acted as if she hadn't heard my ragged voice, her gaze icy and detached. "Ethan, you have 1 minute left. Your sister's fate is in your hands." Lily's heart-shattering screams for help pierced my soul like shards of ice. My heart turning to ash, I finally uttered the words she wanted to hear. "I'll do the surgery on Liam's mother." Chloe embraced me, satisfied. "Good boy. When the surgery is over, I'll give you a new Rolex I brought back from overseas as compensation." I was rushed into the operating room, where the surgery lasted 12 grueling hours. The moment I finished, a nurse ran up to me. "Dr. Clark, someone broke in on your sister at the guest house. They said she was with several men. The news is all over the base. She couldn't handle the shock. She's on the roof of the hospital, threatening to jump." I stumbled my way to the rooftop. There, sitting silently on the ledge, was my sister, looking like a shattered porcelain doll. I stared in horror. "Lily, come down. Please, I'm begging you. I can't lose you, too." The instant she saw me, a faint smile touched her lips. "Ethan, you're here." I walked toward her slowly, reaching out my hand. Her eyes were vacant, but she smiled at me again. "I'm sorry, Ethan, but I just don't have the courage to keep living. I'm going to be with Mom now." And with that, she leaned backward without a moment's hesitation. I lunged forward like a madman, but my hands grasped only empty air. A surge of blood rose in my throat, and my world went dark. When I woke again, the sterile scent of antiseptic filled my nose. I sat up, feeling like a zombie, and walked to the nurse's station. I dialed a number I hadn't called in 5 years. "I accept your offer," I said, "but I have one condition. I want Chloe Vance and Liam Foster to pay for what they've done." The line was silent for a moment, then a calm, clear voice replied, "Consider it done. I'll come for you myself in 1 month." After hanging up, I called my lawyer. "Get a military divorce petition ready for me." Immediately, I had just returned to my hospital room when a pair of familiar arms wrapped around me. "Ethan, what happened to your sister was an accident. Someone broke in by mistake." I pushed Chloe away, my face a mask of stone. She grabbed my hand, acting as if nothing had happened. "You wanted your position back, didn't you? I've already spoken to the hospital administration. I'll even get you that overseas fellowship you've always wanted. How about that?" I laughed coldly and yanked my hand away. "Is this your idea of compensation? A reward bought with the lives of my mother and my sister?" Just then, my lawyer walked in holding a file. I took the papers from him and looked at Chloe with a sneer. "You said you wanted to compensate me with a Rolex, right? Well, here's the bill for the latest model. Sign it." Hearing it was just about money, Chloe visibly relaxed. But just as she reached for the document, the door to the room flew open again. Liam Foster burst in, his face a mask of panic. "Chloe, my mom's complaining of severe chest pain. Did something go wrong with the surgery?" Chloe's expression hardened, and her fingers dug into my wrist like claws. You said the surgery on Liam's mother was a success. Why is this happening? What did you do? Seeing her frantic expression, I thought of the cold indifference she'd shown the day my mother died. The irony was suffocating. Post-operative complications are common. Liam looked at me desperately. Dr. Clark, I know you hate me. Take it out on me, please. Just don't let my mother suffer. Chloe's gaze was menacing. Go treat her now. If anything else goes wrong, Ethan, you know what I'm capable of. I just stared coldly at the document in her hand. Sign it. I'll go as soon as you do. Chloe hesitated for a second, then quickly scrawled her signature. I took the signed divorce petition and immediately handed it to my lawyer. Submit this for review by the commanding officers. Expedite it. The lawyer quickly placed the document in his briefcase and nodded. Dr. Clark, the entire process should be finalized within 30 days. After the lawyer left, I followed Liam to the private recovery room. The moment I walked through the door, a vase came flying at my head. Mrs. Foster glared at me, her face contorted with rage. Did you do something to me during the surgery? Why is my chest in so much pain? Not wanting any more trouble before the divorce was final, I swallowed my anger and approached her bed. I had just taken out my stethoscope when her hand shot out and slapped me hard across the face. They call you some kind of genius surgeon? And you think you can just fob me off with a stethoscope? I held my stinging cheek, my face burning with fury. Mrs. Foster, if you question my competence, you are free to request another doctor. But your repeated physical assaults are a direct threat to my safety. The words were barely out of my mouth before she slapped me again. What are you going to do, Sumi? Have you forgotten how your mother and sister died? You'll be next. She looked at me with a triumphant smirk. Your mother was a scam artist who deserved to be run over. Your sister was a shameless slut who sold her body. You're no better than them. Hearing the people responsible for their deaths, I snapped. I lunged forward and wrapped my hands around Mrs. Foster's throat. What right do you have to talk about them? I can save your life, and I can just as easily send you to hell. A second later, a powerful force shoved me backward. I slammed into the nightstand, and an excruciating pain radiated through me. Chloe stood protectively in front of Liam and his mother. I thought you would have learned something after what happened to your sister. Instead, you've gotten worse, attacking a patient. You are a profound disappointment. Liam wrapped his arms around Chloe, his voice full of feigned distress. Chloe, I don't know why Dr. Clark just snapped like that. My mother just went through a major operation. She can't handle this kind of stress. Chloe looked at Liam's tear-filled eyes, her expression softening with pity before turning to glare at me. I fought back my own tears, staring at her defiantly. Why should I apologize to the people responsible for my family's death? Chloe's face was a dark mask. She gave a slight gesture to the guards behind her. Since Dr. Clark refuses to apologize, take him to the old family chapel. Let him kneel. He can come out when he's ready to admit he was wrong. My pupils constricted. The Vance family kept 2 vicious mastiffs in that chapel. There were stories every year about people getting mauled. As I was dragged inside, the 2 mastiffs stared at me like starved ghouls, their eyes glowing a sickly green in the dim light. I made a move to bolt, but a guard slammed the heavy doors shut behind me. The gash on my forehead was still bleeding, and the scent of it sent the dogs into a frenzy. They lunged. One of the dogs clamped its jaws tightly around my right hand, while the other pinned my body to the ground, leaving me completely immobilized. I fought through the agony, pounding on the chapel doors. Chloe, the dogs are out of control. Help me. But the voice that answered from the other side was Liam's. I remember how well-behaved they were when I gave them to you. I can't imagine them hurting anyone. Hearing Liam, Chloe's voice turned cold. Stop playing games, Ethan. I'll let you out when you've learned your lesson. Then I heard their footsteps fading away, and a chilling despair washed over me. A moment later, there was a sickening crack. The pain from my wrist was so intense it felt like the bone had snapped, and the world started to go gray. I didn't have the strength left to scream as my blood pooled on the floor and my consciousness faded. When I came to, I was back in a familiar hospital room. A searing pain shot up my arm, and I realized with dawning horror that I couldn't move my hand. How did this happen? Chloe heard me stir and rushed over from the sofa, throwing her arms around me. Ethan, I'm so sorry, she said, her voice thick with pity. The mastiffs severed the tendons in your hand. You'll never be able to hold a scalpel again. The hand I took so much pride in, the hand that had built my career, was ruined. How was I supposed to accept that? On the drive back to the estate, I stared silently out the window. Chloe reached over and took my good hand, her expression soft. Ethan, I've arranged a memorial service for your mother and sister tomorrow. We'll give them a beautiful, dignified send-off. I was about to respond when her phone rang. It was Liam. Chloe, my mom's chest is hurting again. I don't know what to do. Can you come over? Chloe slammed on the brakes, her face grim as she looked at me. Ethan, you'll have to walk the rest of the way. Liam needs me. I let out a cold laugh. Are you a doctor? What good can you do for his mother? Her expression instantly soured. Ethan, she's suffering from these complications because of your surgical error. I'm just trying to help you atone for your mistake. With that, she hit the gas and sped off, leaving me behind. I was left alone on a deserted suburban road. Suddenly, a group of men emerged from an alley. One of them stepped forward and stomped down hard on my injured hand. The agony was so intense I nearly passed out. Heard you're Colonel Vance's husband, he sneered. Thought we'd ask you for a little cash. The wound on my hand ripped open again, blood gushing from it. I don't have any money. The man grinned menacingly. You might not, but the Colonel does. He pulled out a phone and made a call. A moment later, Chloe's voice came through the line. Who is this? Disguising his voice, the man growled into the phone. We have Chloe Vance's husband. Wire $200,000 to us, or he's dead. There was a pause on the other end, followed by a cold laugh. You knew I was visiting Liam's mother. Did you really think hiring some actors to stage a kidnapping would be enough to lure me back? Suddenly, I could hear Liam calling for her in the background before the line went dead. The kidnapper picked up a nearby stool and brought it down on me. I coughed up a mouthful of blood. Seeing the dark lake behind the railing, I didn't hesitate for a second. I threw myself over the edge. The frigid water closed over me. As I sank, I thought I could hear arguing from the shore. He just said to rough him up, not kill him. If he's dead, who's going to take the fall for this? The next time I opened my eyes, I was back at the Vance estate. I tried to sit up but was stopped by a loud crash from the living room. Chloe had just shattered a vase against the floor. Liam was holding her, stroking her back. Don't be angry, Chloe. Maybe Dr. Clark was a victim too. At the mention of my name, Chloe's face twisted into a terrible scowl. One of them already confessed. It was all an act staged by Ethan himself. He's so shameless he'd do anything for money. He's no different from his mother or his sister. Her words tore at my heart, a pain so sharp it felt hard to breathe. She hadn't even bothered to ask me a single question. She just assumed it was all my scheme. The next morning, I went to the memorial service Chloe had arranged for my mother and sister. In the main hall, their black and white portraits sat where, just a month ago, they had sat in the flesh. I knelt before the ceremonial urn, burning offerings. Chloe, who had promised a grand and dignified service, was nowhere to be seen. The time for the burial was approaching. I looked around the empty hall, then picked up my mother's and sister's urns and walked out alone. The moment I stepped outside, I was surrounded by a mob of reporters. Dr. Clark, is it true you conspired with kidnappers to extort your own wife yesterday? First your mother dies in a staged accident, then your sister kills herself out of shame for sleeping around, and now you're resorting to blackmail to skip town? Is your whole family just fundamentally corrupt? Each sharp, cynical question was like a needle driving into my heart. I stumbled and fell, and the urns flew from my grasp. In the chaos, someone's foot came down on one of the urns, kicking it open. The ashes spilled across the pavement. I scrambled forward on my knees, my hands shaking as I tried to gather them up. Get back! All of you, get back! But it was as if they were doing it deliberately, their feet trampling over the scattered remains. Don't step on their ashes. Please, I'm begging you. Someone shoved me hard from behind. I fell backward, and a sharp pain exploded at the base of my skull. A moment later, a convoy of military Humvees pulled up. Chloe jumped out before her vehicle had even come to a complete stop. What are you all doing? She looked at me lying in a pool of my own blood, her expression pained. She started to reach for me, but her hand froze in midair. She turned to her aide. Take him to the hospital. The aide looked hesitant. Colonel, shouldn't you? Chloe turned her back on me completely. I don't want to touch a man who would blackmail his own wife. He's filthy. Her words landed on my chest like a boulder. I was trying to sit up in my hospital bed when the chief of medicine walked into the room. Ethan, due to your serious moral failings, which have severely damaged this hospital's reputation, we are terminating your contract. I wish you well. I watched him leave and gave a bitter laugh. When they needed me, I was a god among men. When they didn't, I was garbage. I spent 3 days in that hospital, and Chloe never once came to visit. After being discharged, I returned to the estate. I was about to open the front door when I froze. I am not divorcing Ethan, Chloe's voice roared from inside. And I never want to hear you suggest it again. The sound of her fist smashing a glass tabletop followed. Mrs. Vance was sitting on the sofa, her face a mask of disgust. Your husband was in a public brawl. The story is all over the base. It's a disgrace. If you don't divorce him, are you just going to let him drag the Vance family name through the mud? Chloe ripped the papers in front of her to shreds, her face dark and furious. I already told you, I'm never letting him touch me again. As for a Vance family heir, Liam and I will have one together. I stood outside, my hand gripping the doorknob so tightly the veins stood out on my skin. Later that night, I sat at my desk and called my lawyer. Liquidate every Vance family asset that's in my name. Though he sounded confused, my lawyer didn't question it. Understood. Your divorce from the Colonel is in its final stages. We should have the final, stamped approval in 10 days at most. I nodded. Please make it fast. I have to be gone in 10 days. Just as I said it, the door to my study was thrown open. Chloe stood there, her face livid. Where do you think you're going? My grip on the phone tightened. Before I could answer, there was a knock at the front door. Chloe went downstairs to open it, and Liam immediately pulled her into a sorrowful embrace. Chloe, my mom's been having terrible chest pains ever since the surgery. She nestled against him, murmuring words of comfort, but her eyes, when they found me standing on the stairs, were glacial. Why is Liam's mother having such severe complications? What exactly did you do during that operation? I shot Liam a contemptuous look. I operated on her brain. If her chest hurts, you should ask her why. At this, Liam looked even more pitiful. I've heard that a rare seaweed, dragon's breath, can cure any ailment. Since Dr. Clark insists my mother's pain has nothing to do with him, I'll just have to go find it myself. She's the only mother I have. I can't stand to see her suffer. As Liam turned to leave, Chloe grabbed his arm. You can't even swim. You'll be killed. Then, she turned her gaze on me. Ethan, her complications are your fault. You will go in Liam's place and find this dragon's breath seaweed. Consider it your penance. I stared at her, incredulous. My only crime was saving his mother's life, I said coldly. Chloe's face clouded over. When did you become so cruel and irrational, Ethan? She then had someone bring in 2 wooden boxes. I had my men gather what was left of your mother's and sister's ashes. Whether you get them back or not is up to you. I clenched my jaw. Even if Liam's mother is in pain, there are doctors, nurses, and the best medical equipment in the country at the hospital. You're a colonel, yet you're putting your faith in some mythical seaweed Liam mentioned? Chloe, don't you see how absurd this is? Her expression remained cold. Ethan, I don't want to repeat myself. I looked at her, a silent despair washing over me. My heart felt like a dead weight in my chest as I finally nodded. I'll go. Soon, I was on a boat heading out to sea. The waters here weren't profoundly deep, only 100 feet or so at the most, but that was still the limit for even the most experienced divers. As I stood there in my diving gear, I watched Chloe and Liam sitting in the cabin, sipping expensive wine. My heart felt hollow. Liam offered his glass to Chloe's lips. Are you sure Dr. Clark will be all right, going into the water on a day this cold? Chloe drained her glass in one go, a small smile playing on her lips. When Ethan was stressed during his fellowship, he used to go diving all the time. He even broke a few records. Don't worry about him. The biting wind whipped across my face, and I instinctively flexed my right hand. It seemed Chloe had forgotten that the tendons had been severed. I had just reached the seafloor when a massive manta ray slammed into me, sending a jolt of pain through my abdomen. But then I saw it, the so-called dragon's breath seaweed, drifting just below me. Gritting my teeth, I lunged downward. The moment my fingers closed around the seaweed, I started kicking for the surface as fast as I could. A second later, a shark appeared out of the gloom, its jaws wide as it charged me. I didn't dare hesitate. I unstrapped my spare air tank and hurled it at the creature. I was nearing the surface when a tearing pain shot through my injured wrist, so intense that I lost the strength to paddle. As I started to sink back down toward the shark's gaping maw, the surface above me erupted. A figure was swimming frantically toward me. It was Chloe, her face a mask of panic, and the sight was so absurd I almost laughed. Chloe, if I could, I would wish to have never met you. That night, back at the estate, I came down with a raging fever. It burned for days before I was well enough to even sip some broth. I was packing my belongings into a suitcase when the door was thrown open. Chloe stormed in, her face livid, and grabbed my arm. What did you do to that seaweed? Liam's mother took it and now she can't stop vomiting. Her condition is even worse. I tried to pull away, but I was too weak. You're the one who took it from me. Why are you blaming me now that something's gone wrong? Her eyes were dark and menacing. "Ethan, your schemes are as filthy as your character. You had better pray that Liam's mother pulls through, or I swear I will make you pay." I froze. The look of disgust in her eyes was like a razor blade, slicing me to pieces. She raised her hand, and 2 soldiers entered the room. Her gaze was frigid. "Ethan, since you still refuse to repent, you will go to the hospital and kneel at the entrance. You will stay there until Liam's mother is out of danger. Take him. He is not to stand up without my express permission." I was dragged like a criminal to the hospital entrance, where I was forced to kneel under the scornful eyes of every passerby. I knelt there from morning until evening, when Liam finally emerged from the hospital. "My mother is out of danger," he said. "I asked Chloe to let you go home and rest." Just then, the pager in my pocket vibrated. It was a message from my lawyer. "Dr. Clark, your divorce from Colonel Vance has been finalized. I've had the official decree sent to you." Reading the message, a wave of relief washed over me. I was finally free. I slowly, painfully, got to my feet. I looked Liam straight in the eye. "Liam Foster," I said, my voice like steel, "I'm going to enjoy watching what happens to you." Then I straightened my back and walked away into the darkness. After leaving the hospital, I went directly back to the estate. I picked up my packed suitcase, gave one last look at the house that had been my prison for 5 years, and walked out the gates of the Vance property without a backward glance. As I reached the main gate, a sedan pulled up smoothly in front of me. The window rolled down, revealing a woman with sharp, striking features and a cool demeanor. "Ethan, it's been a long time." Back at the hospital, Chloe was sitting in the corridor when Mrs. Foster's attending physician approached with a chart. "Colonel Vance, the test results are back. Mrs. Foster has a simple case of gastroenteritis. It's nothing serious. Dr. Clark's surgery was flawless." Chloe's hand, holding the report, froze. Before she could speak, her aide ran up, holding out a cell phone with a panicked look on his face. "Colonel, there's been an emergency at your parents' house." The moment Chloe answered, she heard her mother's frantic sobs. "Chloe, it's your father. He was in a car accident. A piece of glass is embedded in his heart, and he needs surgery immediately, but the position is too risky. No surgeon at Fort Bragg will touch him." A flicker of panic crossed Chloe's face. The doctor beside her spoke up. "Across the entire base, Dr. Clark is the only surgeon who could handle that procedure. It's a shame about his hand, but perhaps if he were here to guide another surgeon, there might be a chance." Hearing this, Chloe immediately dispatched her men to find me, but they all returned with the same news. I had vanished from Fort Bragg completely. Her expression went blank, and a sharp pain seized her chest. She clutched at her heart, stumbling toward the exit as she barked orders at her aide. "I don't care what you have to do. Find Ethan Clark now and get him to this hospital to save my father." By the time Chloe got to the other hospital, her mother's face was as white as a sheet. "Chloe, what are we going to do? The chief of staff has consulted with the best specialists in the country, and none of them can help. They all say Ethan is the only one who could perform this surgery." Chloe gripped her mother's hand. "I've already sent people to find him. He'll come." Her mother looked at her, her eyes filled with despair. "But Chloe, his hand is destroyed. How can he possibly operate?" A note of resentment entered her mother's voice as she weakly beat her fists against Chloe's shoulder. "If you hadn't insisted on helping Liam Foster and his mother, Ethan's hand would never have been ruined. Your father wouldn't be lying in there helpless, waiting for the one man who can't save him." Chloe glanced at her watch, agitated. Half an hour had passed with no news. She went to the nurse's station and called the base command, her voice a furious roar. "Why haven't you found him yet? How hard can it be to find one man on this base?" "Colonel," her aide stammered over the phone, "it's like he just vanished after he left the estate. We have no idea where he went." The words made Chloe's stomach drop. Hearing this, her mother collapsed to the floor, completely breaking down. "What now? Ethan's gone. You've sentenced your father to death." Chloe clenched her fists and dialed the number for the apartment I owned before we were married, the one where my mother and sister had lived. The call connected almost immediately, but a stranger's voice answered. "Hello." Chloe froze for a second, then yelled into the receiver, "Who is this? Put Ethan Clark on the phone." The person on the other end was silent for a moment, then exploded. "I bought this place. Who the hell are you? Call here again and I'll report you for harassment." Before Chloe could respond, the line went dead. Chloe stared at the phone, stumbling back a step. I had sold the only real home I'd ever had. A profound sense of panic began to consume her. Just then, Liam arrived, having heard the news about her father. Seeing Mrs. Vance on the floor, he rushed to help her up. "Mrs. Vance, what are you doing on the floor?" "The general will be fine. I'm sure of it. Mrs. Vance looked at Liam's face, then raised her hand and slapped him hard. Get away from me. If it weren't for you, Ethan's hand would never have been destroyed. Liam clutched his red cheek, a flicker of venom in his eyes that he quickly concealed. He turned to Chloe with a wounded expression. Chloe, I just heard what happened and came to see if I could help. Ethan knows the general is in trouble, but he chose this exact moment to disappear. It almost seems intentional, doesn't it? Chloe's expression darkened further. You have no right to talk about my family. Just as she finished speaking, the doors to the operating room swung open. A surgeon emerged, his face grim. I'm sorry. We did everything we could. San Francisco. I sat by a window overlooking the bay, my expression unreadable. A pair of hands appeared in front of me, holding out a file. This is what I promised you. I looked at the document, which detailed a 50% share of the profits, and raised an eyebrow. I thought our arrangement had become more about getting revenge on Chloe Vance. A smile touched Isabella Hayes's lips as she sat down across from me. If we're going to be partners, I need to show my commitment. Besides, it took me 5 years to finally recruit you. 5 years ago, Isabella Hayes, the heiress to the Hayes family fortune, had approached me about collaborating on a new antiviral medication. Her labs were based in San Francisco, but back then, I couldn't imagine leaving Chloe, so I turned her down without a second thought. I held the file, then gestured with my right hand. I assume you've heard what happened, Miss Hayes. My right hand is useless now. Isabella looked at my hand, her expression a mixture of sympathy and something else I couldn't quite decipher. Ethan, you must know it was never your hands I was interested in. It was your mind. With that, she held out her hand. Ethan, welcome aboard. I took her offered hand and shook it firmly. It's a pleasure. Isabella slid a photo across the table to me. Chloe Vance's father was in a car accident 3 hours ago. The entire Vance clan is tearing Fort Bragg apart looking for you. The photo showed Chloe standing grim-faced outside an oar, with Liam beside her, head in his hands. I picked up the photo and dropped it into the trash can without a second thought. My hand is useless. Even if they found me, I couldn't help. Isabella glanced at the photo in the trash, a faint smile on her lips. She turned to a nearby crew member. Let's get underway. As I watched the San Francisco skyline recede, the fist I had clenched finally relaxed. Chloe Vance, I hope you never know another day of peace for the rest of your life. The Vance estate. Chloe drove home from the hospital at a reckless speed. When she pushed open the front door, a cold draft seemed to greet her. She scanned the house. Nothing was out of place, yet a profound sense of unease settled over her. Liam followed her inside, his eyes filled with greed as he took in the opulent living room. Chloe rushed to the master bedroom. She threw open the closet doors to find my side completely empty. The memory of me packing my suitcase flashed in her mind. She clenched her fists. So, even then, I had been planning my escape. Liam looked at the empty room and wrapped his arm around Chloe's waist. Chloe, Ethan must have known that seaweed would make my mother sick. That's why he planned his escape in advance. At Liam's words, Chloe snatched up her phone and called her aide. I don't care what it takes. Find Ethan Clark. I'm going to make him pay for my father's death. Just as she was about to hang up, her aide spoke quickly. Colonel, an urgent document was just delivered to headquarters for you. It's from a law firm. Should I bring it over? Chloe's brow furrowed in annoyance. Just leave it. The next day, Chloe held a large memorial service for her father. The attendees were a who's who of Fort Bragg's military leadership and local business tycoons. After arranging the final details, Chloe noticed Liam flitting about, playing the role of host. She could see the other guests watching him with disdain, whispering behind their hands. I heard she let Ethan's hand get destroyed for that guy, Liam. Then her own father needs the one surgeon who can't operate. If that's not karma, I don't know what is. Everyone knows Liam abandoned her when she got injured years ago. Now that she's a colonel, he comes crawling back and turns the Vance family upside down. If it weren't for him, General Vance would probably still be alive. It's a damn shame. Mrs. Vance overheard them, and her expression soured. She turned to her daughter. Still no sign of Ethan? Chloe scanned the crowd, but the familiar face was absent. Not yet, but don't worry, Mom. I'll make him pay for this. The service began, and Chloe took the stage to deliver the eulogy. As she spoke, a slideshow commemorating her father's life was meant to play on the large screen behind her. But when the screen lit up, a collective gasp went through the crowd. Chloe turned to look and froze. Instead of photos of her father, images from the day of my mother's hit and run filled the screen. The photos clearly showed Liam Foster in the driver's seat, his face a mask of cruelty as he accelerated toward my mother. One image showed the car driving over her body. Another showed him reversing, crushing her a second time until she was clearly dead. Liam saw the images and charged the stage like a lunatic. "Get those pictures down, now!" Chloe grabbed his arm, her expression savage. "You told me it was an accident." Liam looked at her, panicked, shaking his head wildly. "Chloe, listen to me. This is Ethan's doing. He must have faked these. Some kind of digital trick. If he had real proof, why would he wait until now to show it?" "Don't believe him." She threw him off her, and he stumbled to the ground, his face ashen. Chloe fought to control her rage and yelled at the tech crew. "Get those pictures off the screen now. This is my father's memorial. Anyone who dares to disrupt it today will answer to me." One of the technicians looked at her, terrified. "Colonel, we don't know where they're coming from. It's not our system." Chloe's face hardened. She grabbed a nearby chair, ready to hurl it at the screen. But in the next instant, the screen went black, and a new set of photos began to appear. These showed the men Chloe had sent to terrorize my sister. A wave of outrage swept through the audience. She used Ethan's sister to force him to operate on a murderer's mother? That's monstrous. Angry shouts erupted from every corner of the hall. Chloe's hands were clenched into tight fists, her rage barely contained. Liam scrambled up from the floor and grabbed her arm. "Chloe, this is all Ethan's plan. He let your father die just so he could wait for this moment to utterly destroy us." Chloe shoved him away and turned on her aide. "You incompetent fools. Why couldn't you find him?" The aide stammered. "Colonel, it's like he just disappeared from the face of the earth. We couldn't find a single trace." Chloe kicked over a chair in fury. "Ethan, you've really grown a spine." Just then, the doors burst open and a new wave of reporters flooded in, their cameras all pointed directly at her. "Colonel Vance, is it true you had an affair, arranged for a scapegoat to protect Liam Foster, and drove Ethan Clark's sister to suicide? Colonel, you destroyed the hands of the only surgeon who could save your father. Aren't you afraid his ghost will haunt you? Colonel, the memorial for Dr. Clark's family was disrupted. Was that your doing? Now your own father's memorial is in chaos. Do you think this is payback?" Chloe's fists were white-knuckled as she glared at the crowd. "Get out, all of you." She tried to push through the reporters, but someone yanked her arm, and she lost her balance, tumbling off the stage. She lay sprawled on the floor, humiliated, her face a mask of rage. No one moved to help her. The only thing that moved was the relentless flashing of the cameras pointed in her direction. For a fleeting moment, an image of me, lying helpless on the ground, flashed through her mind. A sharp pain lanced through her chest. Ethan, do you hate me this much? Enough to repay every single cruelty I inflicted on you? Liam started to move toward her. But at that moment, a police car pulled up outside. Two officers got out and walked directly to him. "Liam Foster, you're under arrest for vehicular manslaughter. Please come with us." Liam looked at Chloe in terror, grabbing her hand. "Chloe, save me. That bastard Ethan is trying to ruin me." She slapped him hard across the face. "What right do you have to slander him? If it weren't for you, none of this would be happening." He clutched his stinging face, staring at her in disbelief. "But we're on the same side. Don't let Ethan fool you. Can't you see what this is? He's a vicious, manipulative monster." The words were barely out of his mouth when she slapped him again. "I would never be on the same side as you. If you hadn't killed Ethan's mother, none of this would have ever happened." Liam held his face and laughed mockingly. "Chloe, you're such a hypocrite. You brought all of this on yourself. You were the one who offered to help me, who said Ethan's mother was old and it didn't matter if she died. Now that he's coming after you, you're trying to pin it all on me." Chloe stepped forward and wrapped her hands around his throat. "What right do you have to judge me? If I recall correctly, your mother is still a patient in the hospital, isn't she?" His face began to turn blue. He stared at her, terrified. "What are you going to do?" She shoved him away violently. "I'm going to do to your mother exactly what you did to Ethan's." Liam scrambled to get up, but the officers moved in and cuffed him. "Chloe, you can't do this to me," he screamed. Chloe just watched, her expression like ice, as they led him away. The memorial service ended in a complete disaster. Later, at the cemetery, Mrs. Vance looked at her husband's gravestone and then slapped Chloe across the face. "You ungrateful child. If you hadn't thrown away a perfectly good life to get involved with that animal Liam, your father would still be alive. He was such a proud man. If he knew his name was being dragged through the mud like this, he'd never be able to rest in peace." Chloe kept her head down, her hands clasped tightly. "I will find Ethan." Just then, her aide ran up to them. "Colonel, there's a problem. There's been activity on your financial assets. Several people have shown up at headquarters today claiming they've purchased properties registered to you. I checked. Dr. Clark has liquidated every asset that was in his name. Chloe froze, a cold dread creeping up her spine. Ethan had sold everything. Her mother staggered and sank to the ground. He's trying to ruin us. He's trying to destroy the Vance family. Chloe turned and ran. When she arrived at her headquarters, a crowd was gathered at the gate, all of them shouting for her to give them an explanation. Her aide met her at the car. They're all demanding to see you, and, after hearing what happened, the top brass has issued an order for your immediate suspension. Chloe's face was a thundercloud. Still no word on Ethan? How can a living person just vanish from this base? She looked at the military police station nearby, then got out of her car and strode toward it. She walked into the station. Hello? I need to report a missing person. My husband. It was the only thing she could think to do. The officer at the desk glanced at her, took the marriage certificate she offered, and began typing into his computer. A moment later, he handed it back. Ma'am, you're already divorced. Why are you filing a missing person report on your ex-husband? Chloe stared at him, dumbfounded. What? That's impossible. We were never divorced. The officer gave her a contemptuous look. Our records show the petition was finalized 5 days ago. Signed off on by a commanding general, no less. Now you're here looking for him? Sounds like you've got seller's remorse. I've seen it 100 times. Fight the divorce tooth and nail, then come crying when it's over. Chloe stumbled backward. No, that's impossible. Absolutely impossible. I never signed any divorce papers. How could we be divorced? Your records have to be wrong, she shrieked, losing control. The officer wasn't having it. He pointed down the road. The JAG office is 2 miles that way. If you have a problem with the official record, take it up with them. Chloe glanced in the direction he pointed and ran out the door. As she reached the entrance to the Judge Advocate General's building, a sharp pain suddenly seized her chest, making it hard to breathe. She pushed through the discomfort, but a familiar voice stopped her in her tracks. She turned to see my lawyer standing in the doorway. Colonel Vance, what a coincidence. I trust you received your copy of the divorce decree. For a moment, Chloe's mind went completely blank. She grabbed the lawyer by his collar. What did you just say? What decree? The lawyer looked at her, a mixture of fear and confusion on his face. The decree finalizing your divorce from Dr. Clark. You signed the petition yourself when I brought it to the hospital. Don't you remember? Chloe froze, her grip slowly loosening. She realized then that from the moment Lily died, I had been planning my escape. She ran back toward her headquarters like a woman possessed. The angry crowd was still there, and they swarmed her the moment she appeared. Chloe Vance, we paid good money for those properties. You can't just refuse to honor the sales. Is the Vance family going bankrupt? Is that why you're trying to back out of these deals? We're not leaving until we get an answer. We'll make such a scene the Pentagon will hear about it. They pushed and shoved her like a common criminal, but she seemed oblivious, walking mechanically through the crowd. They all followed her as she made her way to her office. She pushed open the door and saw a manila envelope lying on her desk. Her hands trembled as she picked it up, a look of dread creeping into her eyes. Suddenly, one of the men from the crowd lunged forward and snatched the envelope from her hands. What's this? Classified documents? Are you refusing to pay us because the base is in some kind of trouble? Chloe glared at him, her expression murderous, and swung a fist at his face. Give that back to me. The man, his eye already swelling, kicked her hard in the stomach. You hit me? Who the hell do you think you are? You're not the high and mighty Colonel Vance anymore. You're a suspended officer, which makes you a nobody. The crowd descended on her, punching and kicking. Through it all, Chloe clutched the envelope to her chest. She finally managed to rip it open, revealing the officially signed and stamped divorce decree. The last thread of hope she'd been clinging to finally snapped. San Francisco. I sat on a park bench with 2 tiny, newborn kittens nestled in my lap. In front of me was a small sign that read, "Kittens for adoption." Suddenly, a figure stood before me. Hey there, Papa. Are these little ones available? I looked up and met Isabella Hayes's gaze. My face flushed slightly. I glanced around before lowering my voice. Their owner just went to the restroom. I'm just watching them for a minute. Isabella sat down beside me, unfazed. And, I rolled my eyes. Ms. Hayes, I never realized you had such a playful sense of humor. She shrugged, then turned to look at me, her expression suddenly serious. I'm not joking. Before I could figure out what to say, my phone rang, shattering the moment. Isabella burst out laughing. I'm just kidding. You should get that. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding and answered the call. It was a friend from back at Fort Bragg, his voice buzzing with excitement. "Ethan, have you seen the news? They're saying you completely torpedoed General Vance's memorial service. Man, I never knew you had it in you to give people a taste of their own medicine. The story about your divorce is all over the base, too. You're a legend, an absolute icon." My grip on the phone tightened. I walked over to a nearby newsstand and bought a few national papers. Chloe Vance's name was plastered across every front page. Colonel Vance divorced, Vance accused of fabricating evidence, coercion IN sister's suicide, decorated colonel suspended from duty. The people around me reading the papers were muttering in disgust. This Chloe Vance sounds like a real piece of work. A guy with Dr. Clark's talent could have had an amazing career, and she destroyed it. And all for some guy who dumped her? She deserves everything that's happening to her. I listened to them curse her name, but I felt nothing. I folded the newspaper and looked at Isabella. "This was all you're doing, wasn't it?" She didn't deny it. "I promised you I would make her and Liam Foster pay." I thought back to that desperate phone call from the hospital and nodded. "Thank you." Isabella didn't say anything. Instead, she took my hand. "Come on, I want to show you something." I hesitated, looking down at the kittens. "But the owner isn't back yet." She gently lifted one of the kittens from my lap. "I'm adopting them. Someone from my staff will handle the details with the owner. Don't worry." Hearing that, I finally relaxed. Isabella drove us out of the city to a quiet spot by a lake. When we got out of the car, I saw that we were at a cemetery. I looked at her, confused. "Why are we here?" She didn't answer, simply leading me through the gates. She stopped in front of two new, simple headstones. When I read the names carved into the stone, my legs gave out, and I fell to my knees. "Mom, Lily," I whispered. Isabella stood silently beside me. "I had them moved here," she said softly, "to make sure Chloe could never use them against you again. I hope you don't mind that I acted without asking." I carefully wiped the dust from their names on the headstones before slowly getting to my feet. I looked at Isabella, my heart full of gratitude. "Thank you." She simply nodded. "It was part of our deal." I looked at her, surprised. A flicker of genuine pain crossed her features. "You went through hell," she said. I looked up and met her clear, steady gaze, and for the first time, it felt like the deepest wounds inside me might actually begin to heal. Fort Bragg. A bottle slipped from Chloe's hand and crashed to the floor. She lay slumped on the sofa, lost in a drunken haze. "Ethan, why would you do this to me?" she slurred to the empty room. "You loved me so much. How could you be so cruel as to leave?" She tilted her head back, pouring more liquor down her throat as memories of our happier times flickered through her mind. Suddenly, a hand stroked her cheek. She started, then threw herself into the person's arms. "Ethan, you came back. I knew you wouldn't really leave me." A cruel glint appeared in the man's eyes, but he quickly hid it. "I'll never leave you," he murmured. Chloe wrapped her arms around his neck, lifting her face to kiss him. But in the next instant, her eyes cleared, and she shoved Liam Foster so hard he fell to the floor. "Get away from me. You're not Ethan." Liam sat sprawled on the floor. "Chloe, Ethan was always just my stand-in. Now that I'm back, it's only natural that he's gone." Chloe lunged at him, grabbing his collar. "Who the hell do you think you are? How dare you call my Ethan your stand-in?" The alcohol had mostly worn off, and her eyes were now filled with pure disgust. "Why are you here? Weren't you arrested?" Liam took her hand. "Chloe, have you forgotten? You're the one who found the scapegoat for me. It's not so easy to reopen the case." The appeal was denied by the review board, on an order that you personally signed. Chloe's face hardened. "Are you threatening me?" Liam just smiled and took her hand again. "Chloe, I know you were just upset the other day. I don't blame you for what you said, but you have to understand, we're in this together." He pulled her into his arms, confident he had the upper hand, and leaned in close to her lips. "You found the scapegoat. You arranged what happened to Ethan's sister. If I go down, Chloe, you're going down with me. So why don't we just stop fighting and be together?" He moved to kiss her. A second later, the sharp crack of her hand across his face echoed in the room. "You fool. What makes you think you have any power over me?" She shoved him with all her might, sending him crashing backward over the coffee table with a cry of pain. She then walked over and stomped on his hand. "You know, Liam, you just reminded me. Your mother is still a patient at the base hospital." With that, she picked up the phone and dialed the hospital. "Cease all medical treatment for Mrs. Foster. Immediately." Panic flared in Liam's eyes. "Chloe, you can't." Chloe looked down at him and laughed. "This, Liam, is the price you pay for driving Ethan away. Every ounce of pain he suffered, I'm going to give it back to you." Just then, the landline in the living room rang. It was his mother. Liam scrambled to grab the receiver. His mother was sobbing on the other end. "Liam, are you at the Vance house? The bastards at this hospital have cut off my medication. You need to tell Chloe to have them all fired. Now that she's divorced that Ethan, you'll be the colonel's husband, and no one on this base will dare to disrespect me again. That idea you had for me to fake the complications was brilliant. It drove him away for good." Before Liam could even try to shut her up, Chloe snatched the phone from his hand. She stared at him, her eyes blazing with a cold fire. "So all of it was a lie? Your mother faked her symptoms just to frame Ethan?" He shook his head frantically. "No, it wasn't like that. My mother just felt that Ethan had stolen the life that was supposed to be mine. She just wanted to teach him a lesson." Chloe kicked him hard in the chest. "You killed his mother, and then you used your own mother to torment him again and again." A sharp pain exploded in Liam's chest, and he coughed up a spray of blood. Chloe looked at him, and any trace of affection she might have once felt was gone, replaced by pure, unadulterated hatred. She gave a slight gesture, and 2 soldiers entered the room. "Take him to the old chapel. He will stay there for exactly as long as Ethan did." Liam stared at her, horrified. "Chloe, you can't. Those mastiffs will kill me." She just looked at him, her face a cold mask. "You knew they were dangerous. So why did you stop me from helping Ethan?" The soldiers dragged him out like a sack of garbage. He struggled wildly. "Chloe, what's so great about Ethan? Why are you doing this to me for him? Have you forgotten he staged a kidnapping to blackmail you? Are you really going to throw me away for a man with a criminal record?" Chloe's expression was impassive, but her hands were clenched into tight fists. A few minutes later, Liam was thrown into the chapel. The building was dark and eerie, the only light coming from 2 pairs of glowing green eyes in the shadows. He pounded on the heavy doors. "Let me out. Please, let me out." The only answer was the sound of deep, menacing barks from within. The 2 dogs shot out of the darkness like cannonballs, their jaws closing around his wrist. The pain was excruciating, and Liam screamed in agony and rage. "Chloe, if I die in here, I'll haunt you forever." He stumbled around in the dark until his hands found an old landline phone on a table. He was about to dial for help when his pager suddenly beeped. He frantically dialed his mother's number. Before he could even get a word out, a recorded message began to play. It was his mother's voice, screaming, "So many sharks. I don't want to die. Please, let me go." Liam froze, the blood draining from his face. "Mom? What's happening? Let her go. If you hurt her, I swear I'll kill you." But no matter how much he screamed, the phone just kept replaying the same horrifying message. He dropped the phone and started screaming at the door. "Chloe, I'm begging you. Please let us go. I was wrong. I admit it. I was wrong." He fell to his knees, banging his head against the stone floor over and over until he was bleeding, all while the dogs continued to tear at his hand. But the heavy doors remained shut, and no one came. One of the mastiffs, apparently bored with his hand, sank its teeth into his thigh and began to drag him deeper into the chapel's darkness. Liam was shaking uncontrollably, whether from pain or terror, it was impossible to say. "Chloe, I'm begging you, let me go. I was wrong. I swear, I'll disappear from Fort Bragg. You and Ethan will never see me again." But the only answer was the excited snarling of the dogs and the pain that was so intense it was starting to feel numb. A loud crash echoed through the Vance estate's living room as Chloe hurled a glass against the wall. "A bunch of useless fools. You can't find one man." Her aide stood nearby, trembling. "Colonel, we've checked every port, every airport. There's no record of him anywhere. It's like he just vanished from the face of the earth." Chloe's face was grim. A living person doesn't just disappear. Then an idea seemed to strike her. She looked at the guards posted at the main gate. "Question them. I want every detail about the moment Ethan left." The estate's head of staff brought the guards to her. "According to their testimony, when I left the property, I got into a late-model sedan. There was a woman in the driver's seat." Hearing there was a woman, Chloe's eyes narrowed. "Find out who owns that car. Now, Ethan has no family left at Fort Bragg, and I know all of his friends. Who is this woman?" A wild, burning jealousy flared in her chest, a possessiveness so strong it threatened to consume her. She grabbed her car keys, but as she headed for the door, the family's longtime housekeeper ran in, frantic. "Miss Chloe, it's your mother." She collapsed. "They've rushed her to the hospital." Panic seized her, and she ran from the house. When she got to the hospital, a doctor met her with a grim prognosis. "Colonel Vance, your mother has a massive cerebral hemorrhage, but we can't locate the bleed. If we can't stop it soon, she's likely to end up in a persistent vegetative state." Chloe froze, then grabbed the doctor by his lapels, her face contorted with rage. What do you mean you can't find it? Are all of you incompetent? I've secured this hospital millions in funding, and this is the best you can do in a crisis. The doctor looked at her, pained. This kind of procedure requires more than just experience and skill. It requires a rare kind of talent. Great surgeons are hard to find, and Dr. Clark was a true prodigy, the best we had at Fort Bragg. Now that he's gone, a surgery this complex is beyond our capabilities. Chloe stared at him, her hands falling from his coat. She stumbled backward, a look of dawning regret on her face. How had it come to this? She sank to the floor, staring at the red light above the operating room door as silent tears streamed down her face. She raised her hand and slapped herself, hard. It was my fault. I did this to Ethan. I destroyed him, and in doing so, I destroyed my parents' last hope. The old wound where a bullet had passed between her ribs began to ache. She pounded her fist against her chest, again and again, as if trying to beat the pain away. Just then, her aide rushed up. He looked at her pathetic state with a hint of pity. "Colonel, I have to report. Liam Foster has escaped. He found out what happened to his mother, and now he's at the main gate with a group of reporters, demanding a statement from you." Chloe drove straight to the main gate. Before she even got out of the car, she could see Liam standing there, his face covered in bruises. "Hello, everyone. My name is Liam Foster," he was saying to the reporters, rolling up his sleeves to reveal the horrific bite marks on his arms. "For the sake of Ethan Clark, Chloe Vance had my mother thrown into the ocean to be eaten by sharks. She locked me in a chapel with vicious dogs that severed the tendons in my hand. Her crimes are endless and unforgivable." The crowd of onlookers erupted in outrage. "That's monstrous. I still remember what she did to Dr. Clark, and now she's already moved on to torturing another man. She's a demon. How could someone so inhuman be a colonel? I heard her mother is in the hospital with a brain bleed, that she might end up a vegetable because no one can operate. See? It's karma." Liam looked at the supportive crowd, a vicious glint in his eye. "And those photos from the memorial? The ones that claimed I killed Ethan's mother? They were fakes. All of it was fabricated by Chloe Vance to frame me, just so she could have something to offer Ethan." He sank to the ground, sobbing like a victim. "My mother survived a deadly brain tumor, only to be fed to sharks. How am I ever supposed to recover from that?" The crowd's fury reached a fever pitch. "Murderer," they chanted. "Chloe Vance must pay. She has to answer for this. Liam lost his mother, and his hand is crippled. How is he supposed to live? Chloe Vance has to take responsibility." A smug smile touched Liam's lips. He didn't want her in prison. He wanted something much more valuable. But just then, a man stepped out from the crowd, holding a handful of photographs. "Liam Foster is lying," the man shouted. "I have proof that he only left Chloe in the first place for money, and he's the one who forced Ethan to go on that suicidal dive for the so-called miracle cure that nearly got him killed." Liam's face went pale as the man handed him the photos. When Colonel Vance was shot years ago, Liam thought she was going to die, so he dumped her without a second thought and ran off with a wealthy heiress. When that heiress got tired of him, he couldn't afford his lavish lifestyle anymore, so he started living off other rich women. The man then threw a stack of compromising photos of Liam with various older, wealthy women onto the ground for everyone to see. The crowd was stunned. Liam stared at the pictures in horror. "It's not true. These are lies." But the crowd had already turned on him. "Have you no shame, Foster? You're a gigolo pretending to be a victim. He's a disgrace to the uniform. Filthy. I feel dirty just looking at these pictures. I can't believe Chloe Vance ever touched him. He probably has all sorts of diseases. It's disgusting. The great love story of a monster and a leech. What a joke. And he has the nerve to slander Dr. Clark? Neither of them are fit to even say his name." Liam finally lost it, screaming at the crowd, "Go to hell, all of you. San Francisco." I had just stepped out of the lab when my assistant handed me a phone. "Dr. Clark, it's for you. A friend. Ethan, have you seen the news?" Liam Foster caused a huge scene at the main gate. It was a total bloodbath. And get this, Chloe's mother had a massive brain bleed. Too much oxygen deprivation. She's in a vegetative state now. Talk about karma, right? My hand tightened on the phone, but my expression remained placid. None of that has anything to do with me anymore. After I hung up, I picked up the newspaper lying on my desk. Chloe and Liam's names were everywhere. Suddenly, a slender hand placed a glass of warm tea in front of me. I looked up into Isabella's eyes. "Any thoughts on watching them tear each other apart?" she asked. I took a sip of the tea and shook my head. "It has nothing to do with me. Right now, my only focus is finishing the research for the drug I owe you." She stopped walking and turned to face me. I nodded. You've done so much for me, helping me with my mother and sister, everything. I'm incredibly grateful. The only way I can think to repay you is to finish this project as quickly as possible. The smile slowly faded from her face. You know, sometimes you can be remarkably dense. I stared at her, confused, but she had already turned and walked away. Since you insist you owe me, she called over her shoulder, then just keep on owing me, preferably for the rest of your life. I watched her walk away, then hurried to catch up. Isabella, what's that supposed to mean? You don't expect me to work for you forever, do you? She gave me a deadpan look and rolled her eyes. And they call you a genius, Fort Bragg. Chloe sat by the window as her aide handed her a file. According to our investigation, the sedan belongs to the Hayes family. Chloe's hand froze. The Hayes family? The ones who have been a pillar of this community for over a century? The family with untouchable influence. Her aide nodded. Isabella Hayes, the heiress, returned to the area 2 weeks ago. She purchased a new vehicle with full base access credentials. Dr. Clark must have left with her. At the mention of Isabella's name, Chloe's frown deepened. She looked at the photograph of Isabella in the file and slammed her fist down on it. Isabella Hayes, you will not take Ethan from me. Just then, the phone rang. The aide answered it, and his face grew grim as he listened. He turned to Chloe. Colonel, we've found the men from the kidnapping. They've confessed. They say Liam Foster hired them to abduct Dr. Clark and stage the whole thing to frame him. Dr. Clark was innocent the entire time. Chloe's expression turned murderous. That night, as Liam Foster was walking home, a sudden chill went down his spine. He pulled his collar tighter, a sense of deep unease making him walk faster. A moment later, a dark figure darted from an alley, clamping a hand over his mouth and nose. Before Liam could even struggle, his world went black. When he woke up, he was in a dimly lit basement. Chloe was sitting on a nearby sofa, her eyes fixed on him. Panic seized him. He stared at her warily. What do you want? She stood up and walked slowly toward him, then brought her boot down on his thigh. You dared to lay a hand on Ethan? You dared to frame him? He shook his head wildly. I don't know what you're talking about. All I know is that Ethan staged the whole thing himself. It had nothing to do with me. Chloe ground her heel into the back of his hand, and his agonized screams filled the small room. She then tossed a stack of photographs onto the floor in front of him. They were pictures of his mother, suspended from a crane over the open ocean, a school of sharks circling in the water below. Liam stared at the images, his mind fracturing. Chloe, you can't do this. This is murder. She lunged forward and wrapped her hands around his throat. And what you did to Ethan's mother wasn't? He glared at her with pure hatred. Chloe, you're the one who deserves to die. If it weren't for you, none of this would have happened to Ethan. You're the one who pushed him into the abyss. And now you're acting like you care about him. His face was turning purple from lack of air, his voice a ragged gasp. Chloe stared at him, her eyes dark and cold, before shoving him away. He slammed into the wall with a sickening crack from his neck. An agonizing pain shot through his body, and he collapsed, wishing he were dead. Chloe looked down at his crumpled form, then clapped her hands. The basement door opened, and several large, rough-looking men walked in. Liam's face contorted in terror when he saw the men. He looked at Chloe, pleading. Chloe, you can't do this. I was wrong, okay? Please, just let me go this one time. Chloe didn't even look at him as she walked out the door. This is what you deserve, Liam. He watched her leave, his voice a desperate scream. And what about you, Chloe? When are you going to get what you deserve? The only answer was the mocking laughter of the men behind him. Heard you used to be a gigolo, one of them said. We really don't like gigolos. With that, they grabbed him by the legs and dragged him into a dark corner of the room. As Chloe emerged from the basement, her aide approached with a file. Colonel, we've found him. The Hayes family has a research project in San Francisco. It's been stalled for a while, and Isabella Hayes is personally overseeing it. Chloe saw the words San Francisco and immediately headed for her car. Book me the next flight out. She was about to get in when she turned back to her aide. And bring me the urns with Ethan's mother's and sister's ashes. As long as I have them, he'll have no choice but to come home with me. The aide stammered, Colonel, the urns are gone. They were stolen from the estate 2 weeks ago. Chloe's eyes narrowed. Who would dare steal from me? He brought forward one of the housekeepers, who fell to her knees, trembling. It was Miss Hayes, she whimpered. She paid me to take them. Chloe's fists clenched, her face a mask of pure fury. Isabella Hayes, Ethan is mine. You will not take him from me. San Francisco. I finally emerged from the lab after an all-night session, the exhaustion clear on my face. I had just started walking home when a sleek new car pulled up smoothly beside me. Isabella Hayes got out, opened the passenger door for me, and flashed a brilliant smile. I didn't bother with pleasantries and slid into the seat. She handed me a small bag with breakfast inside. "You've earned this." I opened it to find a coffee and a bacon, egg, and cheese croissant, exactly how I liked it. I looked at her, surprised. "Where did you find this?" I didn't think there was a decent breakfast spot anywhere near the lab. She opened the coffee for me, a small smile playing on her lips. "I made it." I nearly choked on my coffee. "I had no idea you could cook," I said, amazed. As she drove, she pulled a napkin from the console and dabbed at my chin. "There's a lot you don't know about me. We'll have plenty of time for you to find out." My ears suddenly felt warm. I quickly turned to look out the window, then nervously pulled a file from my bag. "The drug is in the final phase of trials. We should have the results within the next day or two." She didn't even glance at the file. Instead, she picked up her phone and called her assistant. "Arrange a press conference for 3 days from now. I want the whole world to know about the new drug the Hayes Corporation has developed in partnership with the brilliant Dr. Ethan Clark." I was taken aback. "Shouldn't you wait for the results before you announce a launch? If we announce a press conference and the drug fails, it could do serious damage to the Hayes Corporation's reputation." She turned to look at me, her eyes filled with unwavering confidence. "I believe in you. Besides, it's my call to make, not yours. You just focus on your work. No matter what happens, I'll be the one to handle it. You don't need to feel any pressure." I was stunned. It was the first time anyone had ever shown such unconditional faith in me, promising to stand by me no matter what. I simply nodded. As the morning sun streamed into the car, I felt a faint flutter in the part of my heart I thought had been sealed off forever. San Francisco. The moment Chloe stepped off the plane, a cold wind hit her, making her shiver. She was about to hail a cab when she saw a familiar face on the massive digital billboard in the plaza. It was me, sitting confidently for the camera, holding a vial of a newly developed medication. Behind me, the corporate logo of the Hayes Corporation was prominently displayed. "I heard Ethan Clark developed a new antiviral for the Hayes Corporation that's going to blow every other pharma company out of the water. It'll make them the undisputed leader in the market. That Chloe Vance is a real idiot. She had a husband like that and threw him away for some gigolo. She traded a diamond for a piece of glass." The chatter of the people around her felt like a knife twisting in her heart. She stared up at my image on the screen, her expression one of desperate longing. "Ethan," she whispered, "I'm here to take you home." Chloe followed the address from the advertisement to the press conference. When she arrived, she was immediately stopped by security at the door. "This is a private Hayes Corporation event. No unauthorized entry." She glared at the guard, her face dark. "Get out of my way. I am Colonel Chloe Vance from Fort Bragg, and I am here to see my husband." The guard looked her up and down and then laughed mockingly. "I don't care if you're a colonel or a crossing guard. No invitation, no entry. For all I know, you're from some rival company trying to steal trade secrets." Chloe's eyes blazed with fury, her hands clenched into fists. "I don't have time for this. I am going inside, and I am getting my husband." She took a step forward, trying to push past him. A moment later, another guard struck her across the back with a baton. "Who the hell do you think you are, trying to crash a Hayes Corporation event? You must have a death wish." A sharp pain exploded in her back. She tried to push herself up, but the first guard kicked her hard in the chest, sending her sprawling again. "Are you going to leave, or do we have to get rough?" The guards continued to kick her as she lay on the ground, too battered to even try to stand. Through the crack in the partially open doors, she could see inside. She saw me on the stage, smiling confidently, holding the product I had developed, the center of everyone's attention. I looked so poised, so self-assured, every gesture captivating the audience. Chloe reached a trembling hand toward the doorway. "Ethan," she rasped, "I'm here." The guard followed her gaze and saw she was pointing at me. His face darkened with anger. "So you're after our CEO's fiancé, are you? You shameless bitch. Take a good look at yourself. What makes you think you're even in his league?" The guard's words pierced Chloe's heart like a shard of glass. She grabbed his leg as he moved to kick her again. "What did you just say? What do you mean, fiancé?" The guard sneered down at her. "You didn't know? Our CEO, Ms. Hayes, has been pursuing Dr. Clark for years. Everyone knows they're practically engaged. He's as good as her fiancé." Chloe's hands balled into fists. "That's impossible. Ethan belongs to me. No one can take him from me." She painfully pulled herself to her feet and limped away, heading for the back entrance. After the press conference ended, Isabella led me off the stage, her eyes soft. You were amazing today. I knew you would be. I let out a huge sigh of relief and, without thinking, squeezed her hand. She froze for a second, surprised, before I said excitedly, you have no idea how nervous I was. My heart is still racing. She looked at my flustered excitement and smiled. I glanced down and realized I was still holding her hand. My face flushed, and I quickly let go, striding ahead. I'm just going to the green room for a minute. You should go handle the post-conference business. Isabella stood where she was, a small smile playing on her lips as she watched me go. I reached the door to the green room, my face still feeling warm. I pushed the door open, and a pair of hands shot out from the darkened room, yanking me inside. I started to struggle, but a familiar voice whispered in my ear, Ethan, it's me. The lights flicked on, and I recoiled in shock at the sight of Chloe's pale, bruised face. Chloe, what are you doing? She saw the wariness in my eyes, and a look of disbelief crossed her face. Ethan, are you afraid of me? I tried to push her away, but she wrapped her arms around me in an iron grip, pinning me in place. Chloe, there's nothing between us anymore. What you're doing right now is a threat to my safety. Her arms tightened for a second, and she looked at me, incredulous. A threat? Ethan, you're my husband. We're supposed to be together. I bit down hard on her shoulder, trying to break her hold. Chloe, we are divorced. We can never go back to what we were. A sharp pain shot through her shoulder, but she didn't even flinch, just held on tighter. It's not over until I say it's over. We can get married again. Ethan, you belong to me, and you always will. She started to drag me toward the door. Just as she reached for the handle, we heard footsteps approaching from the other side. The press conference is over, Isabella's voice called out. The team is heading out to a bar to celebrate. We're all waiting for you. It was Isabella. I tried to shout, but Chloe clamped her hand over my mouth. Is she the reason? Is Isabella Hayes the reason you won't come back to me? She hissed, her grip like a vice, as if she were trying to absorb me into her own body. You belong to me, Ethan. Only me. Hearing no response, Isabella knocked again. Ethan, are you in there? Everyone's waiting. I struggled to respond, but I was completely pinned. Then I heard a staff member say, I think Dr. Clark already left a few minutes ago. Isabella sighed. He left without me. Then I heard her footsteps fading away down the hall. Chloe opened the door a crack, and once she was sure Isabella was gone, she pulled me out into the hallway. I'm taking you home now, Ethan. The moment she stepped out of the room, the sharp edge of a knife was pressed against her throat. Let him go. Chloe looked up and met Isabella's icy gaze. Isabella Hayes, what do you think you're doing? Isabella pressed the blade a little deeper. Let go of Ethan, or I'll be more than happy to slice your throat open. Isabella glanced at me, and seeing that I was unharmed, her tense expression relaxed slightly. Chloe glared at her, her face a mask of rage. Who the hell do you think you are? Ethan is my husband. This is none of your business. I laughed coldly. Chloe, it's been over between us for a long time. The moment my mother died, any future we might have had died with her. Chloe reached for my hand, but Isabella pressed the knife forward. The sharp blade broke the skin, and a thin trickle of blood ran down the steel. Slowly, Chloe let go of me. The moment I was free, I moved to stand behind Isabella. She shielded me with her body. Ethan, go. I didn't hesitate. I turned and ran. As she watched me leave, Chloe felt a pain in her chest so sharp she could barely breathe. Isabella waited until she was sure I was gone, then let out a sigh of relief, blocking Chloe's path. She slowly lowered the knife. Chloe, Ethan is not your property. He doesn't belong to anyone. With that, Isabella turned and went after me. Chloe watched her go, her hands clenched so tightly her knuckles were white. I will never let you go, she thought. You belong to me. Isabella drove me home in silence. I stared out at the city lights, and a flood of buried memories washed over me, my thoughts a tangled mess. Suddenly, a gentle hand covered mine. I started, pulled from my reverie. Don't worry, Isabella said softly. I'll have security posted outside your place for the next few days. Chloe won't dare to try anything. I nodded. I know we can never go back. I just never imagined she would become this. When I got back to my apartment, I was just about to turn in for the night when the power suddenly went out, plunging the room into darkness. I stood there, a sudden, inexplicable sense of panic rising in my chest. I reached for my phone to call Isabella, but a pair of arms wrapped around my waist from behind. Ethan, Chloe's voice whispered. I've got you. Before I could react, she pressed a cloth over my mouth and nose. My world faded to black. When I opened my eyes, I was in a familiar bedroom, the bedroom in the house that had been my prison for 5 years. Chloe was leaning over the bed, her expression full of adoration as she gently stroked my cheek. I shot up, knocking her hand away. Chloe, are you insane? Do you have any idea what you're doing? You're a military officer. This is kidnapping. She grabbed my wrist, her eyes burning with a fierce possessiveness. What law am I breaking by bringing my husband home? I stared at her in horror, trying to pull away. She ignored me, laying out my ID and documents on the bed. Then she started to pull me toward the door. We're going to the courthouse today to get a new marriage license. I clung to the headboard for dear life. Chloe, I don't love you anymore. It's over between us. We will never have a future together. She stopped pulling, her expression one of utter disbelief. Ethan, you can't do this to me. I've given up everything for you. I can't lose you now. I looked at her and scoffed. Chloe, you didn't lose everything because of me. You lost it because of your own actions. And you've never loved me. The only person you've ever loved is yourself. She grabbed me, her voice cracking with desperation. That's not true. I love you. You're the only one I've ever loved. The people who hurt you, I've made them all pay tenfold. Ethan, please believe me. I'll be good to you. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Just come back to me. I just stared at her, my eyes cold as ice. Chloe, I hate you. From the moment my sister jumped off that roof, the only thing I have ever felt for you is hate. I slowly pushed her away. But now I don't even feel hate. I just feel pity. She froze, her face a mask of shock. You pity me? Just then, her pager beeped. It was a message from her aide. Colonel Vance, your mother suffered complications from cerebral hypoxia. Resuscitation efforts were unsuccessful. She was pronounced dead moments ago. Chloe staggered backward, her face ashen. How had it all come to this? She looked at me, her eyes vacant, as if searching for an answer. I just stared back at her, my voice devoid of emotion. It's called karma, Chloe. The words were barely out of my mouth when the sound of approaching sirens filled the air. Chloe ran to the window. The street below was filled with police cars. While she was distracted, I made a break for the door. But when I threw it open, I froze in horror. Liam Foster was standing on the other side, his face a twisted mask of rage, his eyes locked on me. Finally, he hissed, I've been waiting for you. He was holding a knife, and he lunged at me like a wild animal. Before I could even react, Chloe yanked me behind her, and the knife whistled past where I had been standing. She glared at Liam, her face grim. What are you doing here? Liam looked down at his torn clothes and the festering wounds that covered his body, and he let out a bitter laugh. Chloe, you threw me into hell. I only held on this long so I could be the one to personally drag you down with me. He saw her standing protectively in front of me, and the hatred in his eyes seemed to boil over. And it's perfect that you brought Ethan back. Now I can send you both to hell together. He pulled a lighter from his pocket, and I noticed for the first time the smell of gasoline. He looked at Chloe, his eyes wild. Even if you get out of here, Chloe, you'll never escape justice. You might as well just die here with Ethan. With that, he flicked the lighter and tossed it onto the gasoline-soaked floor. The room erupted in flames. Chloe immediately shoved me behind her, then grabbed a heavy vase and hurled it at the window behind us. The glass shattered. Seeing his chance to escape thwarted, Liam charged them with the knife. Neither of you is getting out of here alive. In that instant, Chloe threw herself in front of Liam, taking the full force of his lunge. The knife sank deep into her side. Blood poured onto the floor, but she just turned her head and looked at me. Ethan, jump, now! I didn't hesitate. I scrambled through the broken window. Isabella was standing on the lawn below, her face a mask of worry. I glanced back one last time at Chloe. She managed a pained smile, her eyes full of a desperate love. Ethan, I'm sorry. In the next life, can you give me another chance? I didn't answer. I turned and jumped. The moment my feet left the ledge, a massive explosion rocked the house behind me. The entire building was instantly consumed by fire. I lay on the grass for a moment before pushing myself up. I stared at the inferno, and a single tear traced a path down my cheek. Chloe was dead, consumed in the fire along with Liam. She was posthumously dishonorably discharged, and the Vance family was barred from any future military or government service. I spent some time recovering in the hospital. The day I was discharged, I took the first flight to San Francisco. The sky was cloudless. I knelt before my mother's and sister's graves, carefully pulling the weeds that had sprouted around them. Mom, Lily, I said softly, Liam Foster and Chloe Vance are dead. Everyone who hurt you has paid the price. Just then, a bouquet of sunflowers was placed on the grass beside me. I looked up, surprised, into Isabella's eyes. Did you sneak back here just to avoid me? she asked. I looked down, feeling a little awkward. I remembered being in the hospital, drifting in and out of consciousness, and feeling someone cup my face in their hands and gently kiss my forehead. Ethan, a voice had whispered, from now on, you're not getting away from me. Thinking of that kiss, I shifted my gaze uncomfortably. Isabella stood on her toes and cupped my face in her hands. It's okay, she said. I'll wait. I'll wait for the day you're ready to really open your heart to me. The day you're ready to let me in for good. I've already waited 5 years. I don't mind waiting for the rest of my life. As long as it's you I'm waiting for, I have all the patience in the world. I looked down at her, bathed in the warm sunlight, and a small smile touched my lips. Isabella, I began, the weather is beautiful today, and it's good to have you here with me.